Ministers who'll be going back with this image of a tram. You want me to turn it around? Not easy. So this is what we're giving them. I'll send. It's assembled. They don't have to put it together themselves. Here we go. So, good morning, everybody. At the end of the press conference, we will be providing you with the complete declaration which came out of this meeting, which contained 67 separate points, carefully crafted. Every adjective has been polished. If there are a couple of things I want to underscore, two things which the Italian government has been attaching importance to. One is the environmental transition, which the G7 is confirming, but more than ideological, it is commonsensical. And in item 19, there's a reference to technological neutrality, which is something which Italy, me as a minister, and also my party has always stressed. So not only some energy sources, but all of them we've mentioned. Nuclear, biofuels. With some ministers, we've also talked about cooperation in that area. So not everything is just electrical. You will have seen it was a while that I didn't have a stroll around the cathedral. I saw a well-known electric car maker from China who opened a store near the Duomo. I'm in favor of the free market, but there are some rules of the European Union which don't put us in a position to compete on a fair footing with other countries. So writing down clearly as G7, not as Matteo Salvini or Italy, the fact that we speak of results and technological neutrality and a reference to alternative fuels, constructive dialogue with private operators, sustainable biofuels, means that we're opening room for the space for the internal combustion engine. Otherwise, there'll be a social, economic, and industrial suicide we'll be committing. You followed the topics. I chose Milan, first of all, because it's my city, and secondly, because it's one of the European corporate capitals, capital for fashion and design, but also a capital of innovation. And we have involved more than 200 individuals and companies. So it was an open G7, which was open to universities, associations, companies, and today we discussed shipping and maritime aspects, and we invited two of the most important players in shipping and cruise line operations. We spoke about Ukraine with a very positive meeting with my colleague from Ukraine, who is Minister for transport, but also with 30 Italian operators. I'm saying this as a Deputy Prime Minister, that in order to reconstruct, arms must cease, missiles must stop flying, and bombs must stop causing death. So the commitment to have 2024 be a year of peace collides with dramatic news from Australia, Iran, and so I hope that all international leaders, and first of all, European leaders, speak in tones of peace, and so nobody speaks about dispatching European soldiers beyond their borders to fight and die. So it's been a very concrete, practical G7. Wasn't ideological. It was very pragmatic. We also had very pragmatic contacts with our U.S. colleague and with our Canadian colleague, to whom we gave the bell he will use to inaugurate the Canadian presidency. And as a Milanese person, I'm proud that I've been able to show them La Scala, the Museum of the 20th Century, Dolce Gabbana exhibition, the result at the match at San Siro, with the result which I hope we will overturn. But I did say that the French referee, I said to the French minister, did not always live up to expectations. And the visit to the Duomo with the Madonnina, which fascinated everybody. I hadn't been up there in the midst of those 3,400 statues for a long time. It's the public monument with the largest number of statues, I discovered. I have dozens of concrete things to say about logistics and street infrastructure. I spoke and I've garnered support beyond for a number of projects, such as the high speed from Lyon to Genoa, to the bridge on the Strait of Messina, which everybody asked me information about. Our colleagues from Canada to United States to Japan to Britain. When will you be starting this? When will you be completing it? When will you inaugurate it? I've invited Commissioner Valiant for 2032. So some small local disputes, only background noise at the global level, because these major infrastructures, these networks of connection, which create uproar in this country, are seen as something essentially absolutely necessary in abroad. So if there are any questions, I'll be very glad to answer your questions. And since this is a G7 which began on Wednesday, thanks to the event at the Politecnico, which continued in Thursday, with side events with the world of industry. There have been weeks of very demanding issues, and I'd like to thank the staff which has contributed. Everything went very well, even the weather. It's my first G7, not as a guest but as an organizer, so I was very excited but also very challenged, and I'll have to disconnect my phone for a couple of hours and re-establish contacts with the real world. But I've been very glad that Milan hosted this meeting. Milan is Italy, and they're going back. People are going back to all these capitals, going back with a very positive image of our country. As Deputy Prime Minister, I'm very proud of this. Are there any questions? I'll be very glad to take them. First question, Roberto Calise from Fair Press.
Good morning, Minister. This morning's session was focused on maritime connectivity. Now, if we want to draw guidelines, the Italian infrastructures, regardless of the political period, makes of Italy a logistics platform. So what happens in the Red Sea has direct impact. So my question is, what are the engagements of the ministers, G7 ministers, to this regard, and considering the need of Israel to defend itself, what may happen involving other countries, Iran in particular? Yes, we devoted the final day to maritime connectivity and the shocks. So this was a political choice. The Canadian colleague proposed a permanent panel, and we agreed with this. We don't need formal G7s for this. We can connect in cases of emergencies directly. It's a question of security, safety for all the players, economic issues. 130% have been the increase of transitions across the Cape of Good Hope, with extra 10 days of navigation on the transfer of freights and cargo. And now, if we consider that we are really trying to reduce the emissions from boilers, think of what's happening in terms of emissions with these extra maritime routes. We have involved private players and operators, not Grimaldi as such, but as a stakeholder for the whole category, and we have involved the cruise line industry, and the entitlement to defend oneself is key. It seems that a Portuguese flag vessel was kidnapped recently, was seized recently. We hope that 2024 is the right time year for put an end to this, and we have a very important enforcement task, and we're far from the figures of the pandemic when it comes to freight rates, but these freight rates have grown now recently, and they are then paid by the consumers. Tesla, for instance, and Volvo have been blocked in their manufacturing because of the shortage of raw materials. We thought this was a major topic because it is a priority. When I mentioned how the Italian government is investing, I'm thinking of the harbour of Genoa, Trieste, Gioia Tauro, and how Italian investments, the electroports, Alessandria, and the bridge on the Strait of Sicily, foreign colleagues were impressed favorably with all these approaches and results. As for Israel, the right to defend its territory and its democracy is absolutely a must, and the number of civilian casualties, I hope, will end as soon as possible. Paola Bonanni from GRI Radio. You mentioned transition. Over these past 3 days, to what extent this option for common sense, how important was the Italian role in this decision? I'm speaking on behalf of the G7 here, so I'm expressing myself as a common voice. If we speak of biofuels and technological neutrality, it means that the only electric, as it was before, has now been curbed. I'm trustful because the June vote in Europe can change things in time. In 2016, we will have a checkup on these things. This is not green economy. This is a black economy, interpreted in those terms, because it entails dependency on non-G7 countries where trade union rights and entitlements are not priorities, and it entails laying off workers in Italy. So these are black routes and black options and not green options. So, of course, the approach on this level, which was only Italian, now we have the French, the Germans, the British and the Americans are more open-minded towards our system, because when you have to compare yourself with the billion of inhabitants in China and India, that don't have the same priorities. We are heading towards economic and environmental suicide if we don't change our route and trajectory. We were isolated with this voice a year ago, and now we have confirmation that we were right in our position on items 19 and 40 of the declaration that you will receive shortly. Highlights strategic dependencies in the automotive industry, in distortion competition practices. These are the things written in the document. The fact that certain ridiculous or absurd rules decided in Brussels will not favor the environment but other competitors. And all you need to go for a walk around the Milan Cathedral and you'll see where this black ideology is leading. Paolo Verdura from the ANSA press agency. With regard to automotive, the automotive industry, considering the European Commissioner Diana said that we might open a debate on this before 2026, next year. Now, you as a minister, if you will set the issue of neutrality, can you tell us something more on the Alpine tunnels being opened, the Frejus? Besides the good intentions, is it possible to achieve an understanding, a specific understanding with specific dates and ways and means? Yes, I will try and be quick and practical. Yes, as far as I'm concerned, revising these black policies, anti-European, anti-industrial, anti-environmental, and pro-Chinese policies, revising them can start as of the 10th of June, not 2026. Companies have to work in the longer term. So after the European elections, hoping a different balance within the European Parliament and the future Commission, we hope that a more pragmatic approach, less ideological and less oriented towards a Timmermans approach and less socialist, can be available in the offing. And thanks to the Commission, I thank Commissioner Faglia. She's always been close to the Italian positions. We spoke of the Brenner Pass in the Alpine region. Now, the Strasbourg Court of Justice, we hope, will provide entitlement to those who deserve it. In Italy, there's a violation of rules on people and goods. I mean, the Austrian government can't close the transfer on the Brenner Pass overnight, just like that. I hope the court provides ruling appropriately. We have asked for more speed in opening up the Tunnel of the Shoes after the landslide. We were told that they're doing their best, and in the second half of this year that will be reopened. And we also requested to reason along the lines of the second line of the Monte Bianco, Mont Blanc, because the situation is not sustainable. Our colleague French was appointed recently, and we signed the Cuneo Ventimiglia agreement. There are other policies that see us together. This was a very, very good starting point. The last person to take the floor, Francesca Del Vecchio from La Stampa newspaper. You mentioned this earlier, but yesterday the bilateral meeting with the Japanese colleague was to discuss the Sicily Bridge. How is that bridge between southern Italy and Sicily is seen abroad, and how do you respond to the Italian citizens who say that the bridge will never happen? I can tell you what my 6 colleagues mentioned these past few days, from the European Commissioner to the Japanese colleague, Canadian colleague, and the British colleague, they all are interested and attracted by one of the major engineering works for a 3.3 long bridge with no pillars. Now, with Japanese, Spanish, Danish, and US partnerships, because the partners that will be working, let me remind you, as of 2024, I have respect for the opinion of everybody, and I am the minister. For a century, millions of Italians want to be linked. Sicilians are waiting to be linked with the rest of the country. So we're going to open the works in this year. There is a Japanese component. Japan has a know-how. We mentioned the Akashi Bridge. Also, there is a Danish component. I visited a bridge in Denmark with similar sizes. And then there is Parsons from the US that works globally and is part of this initiative. Then we have a Spanish component. We have the best Italian universities involved in the Technical Scientific Committee. The bridge will not be built by politicians, by engineers, geologists, and workers, and it will be built to resist over the centuries and not just years. I think it will multiply wealth and further infrastructures as the Italian Del Sole motorway was at the end of the Second World War. And for those, a bridge is a bridge, a tunnel is a tunnel, a railway is a railway, and a toll gate is a toll gate. I was born in Baggio near Milan. I have a home in Milan and Rome. The bridge will change the lives of several commuters, and it is a revolution as well, because instead of having thousands of ferries crossing the Sicilian Strait, you will have a bridge. Now, in terms of sustainability and tunnels in general and decarbonization in general, a cargo train takes 3 hours to cross to Sicily this year and from Sicily, and 2 hours passengers on rail. So it'll be 10 minutes instead of 2 hours and 3 hours. That changes your lives. So I invited them to visit the yards that are going to be opened before the end of this year. Alessandro Cornali from the Cornola Agency.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, the so-called directive on green houses was approved. Can you make a comment on this? Black house, really, as well than a greenhouse. It's a tax. It's another Euro tax. There's no need to tax people's homes. We, as a ministry, since I have a portfolio on houses, we're trying to estimate the cost. It goes from a minimum of 30,000 to a maximum of 80,000 euros for 5 million families. Is it useful? Minister Giorgetti did well. I'm saying that on behalf of the government as well as on behalf of the Lega, since he's Deputy Secretary of the Lega, I'd like to ask who's going to pay for this. It's fine. Change your motorcycle, your car, truck, change your bike, change your boiler, change your fixtures, change the roof. Who's going to pay for all this? So I think this is backlash from a commission which has confused ideas. Our government is very different. We're responding to the Euro tax on houses, and we're going to have this on the cabinet. We're going to have a house-saving law, or decree, which is going to save everything inside houses. We're working this out with the cooperation of engineers and technical experts, cooperatives, owners and tenants. So we're going to have a house saving decree which is going to save lots of cases on small difficulties and irregularities. We're not talking about huge uses. We're talking about rooms for children, the verandas, cellars, all these things inside a home which you may have inherited 20, 30 years ago and which you can't, and because of which you can't put your house on the market. So the principle is completely opposite to what comes from Brussels. So if nobody else has any questions, we can end this conference. So thank you all for having accompanied this wonderful G7.